Qingyuan Tea House stood in the oldest part of Eastsea, hidden on a narrow stone street where rainwater never seemed to dry. There were no glass towers here, no glowing mall signs, no giant screens celebrating the new age of awakened cards. The walls were dark with age, the wooden door was scarred by decades of weather, and two faded lanterns hung outside even in daylight, their weak red light making the place look less like a business and more like a patient trap. Lin Jin arrived at 4:15 in the afternoon. He had made Gu Chengzhou wait for more than 4 hours. Zhou Mingye walked behind him with a canvas bag hugged to his chest. The bag held several harmless low-grade cards and a few emergency supplies. The real valuables were sealed in his little Lucky Star storage grid, where no casual scanner could touch them. He kept glancing at the second-floor window as if expecting a sniper, a debt collector, or a very angry rich heir to lean out. "Are you really not worried he's going to take this personally?" Zhou whispered. "He's a financial prince. People like him probably don't even wait in line for milk tea. You made him drink cold tea for half a day." Lin Jin looked at the half-open window above the entrance. "If he can wait 4 hours, then he has more patience than I expected." Shen Liyue walked on his left. She had changed into a simple black coat, hiding the bandage around her shoulder. Her face was still pale, but the chill in her eyes had steadied again. "It also means he thinks you're worth the wait," she said. "Exactly," Lin Jin replied. "So today is not only a trade." Zhou tightened his grip on the canvas bag. "Then what are we negotiating?" "Boundaries." The first floor of the tea house was empty. No guests, no owner, no sound except the low hiss of boiling water somewhere behind the counter. The smell of tea was strong, almost too strong, covering the sharper scent of metal and old wood. When Lin Jin pushed the door open, a light laugh drifted down from the stairs. "Student Lin, you're much later than our agreed time." Gu Chengzhou sat by the second-floor window. He wore a dark gray shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows, and the cup of tea before him had long gone cold. A tall middle-aged man stood behind him, right hand covered by a black glove, his breath heavy and stable like a wall that had learned to stand in human shape. Gu himself looked younger than his reputation. Clean features, mild eyes, a calm smile. Nothing about him seemed arrogant at first glance. That was exactly why Lin Jin distrusted him. In Lin Jin's previous life, Gu Chengzhou had not built his influence by shouting, threatening, or acting like a tyrant. He had built it by giving everyone a price that felt fair at the time. A route map for one team. Medical access for another. Debt forgiveness for a desperate family. A rare card for a lonely genius. By the time people realized what they had sold, their lives, cards, contracts, intelligence routes, and personal networks were already tied into Gu's system. Lin Jin sat down across from him. Shen Liyue took the seat on his right. Zhou sat on his left with the canvas bag at his feet. Their arrangement looked casual, but it formed a small defensive triangle. If the black-gloved guard wanted to move, he had to cross the table first. Lin Jin's black iron kunai was hidden in his sleeve. A trace of frost had already formed beneath Shen Liyue's fingers. Gu noticed all of it and smiled anyway. "You seem very guarded against me. You sent people to follow us to a safe location." "A misunderstanding." "Was the injury on your scout's ear a misunderstanding too?" Gu poured him a cup of tea. "A lesson, perhaps. I have already dismissed the person responsible." "You dismissed him because he failed. And because failure has consequences." Lin Jin did not touch the tea. "Then speak directly." The smile in Gu's eyes deepened by a fraction. He raised one hand, and the black-gloved guard placed a slim folder on the table. Inside were printed documents, seal stamps, a temporary exploration permit template, and 3 blank contract pages written in the dense language of a corporate legal department that had adapted much faster than the government. "The world has changed," Gu said. "Old money alone is no longer enough. But capital, information, logistics, medicine, safehouses, route control, and political access still matter. My family can provide those things. You have combat value, source card value, and unusual intelligence. I want cooperation. You want control. Control is one type of cooperation. Not with me." Gu did not seem offended. "Then tell me what cooperation looks like with you." Lin Jin leaned back slightly. The tea-house window framed a strip of darkening sky behind Gu's shoulder. The crack above Eastsea had not disappeared. It had narrowed after the campus crisis, but it remained suspended over the city like a wound that refused to close. Every now and then, a shimmer of another world passed across its deepest layer. "No exclusive contract," Lin Jin said. "No forced supply route. No right to assign my team missions. No hidden inspection of our cards. No clause allowing your family to transfer our debt, injuries, death benefits, or equipment rights to a third party. If you want information, you pay per item. If you want cooperation in a rift, we decide case by case." Zhou blinked. He had expected Lin Jin to refuse. He had not expected him to recite the traps before seeing the contract. Gu's expression changed for the first time. It was subtle, but the warmth around his mouth cooled. "You've read similar documents before." "I have buried people who signed them." The tea-house went quiet. Shen Liyue looked at Lin Jin. Zhou stopped breathing loudly. Even the black-gloved guard's gaze sharpened. Gu studied Lin Jin for a long moment. "Interesting." "No," Lin Jin said. "Not interesting. Expensive." Gu laughed softly. "Then let us make it expensive in a clean way." The negotiation lasted 40 minutes. Gu wanted the right to purchase low-grade ninja tools, fire-style and lightning-style cards, and first notice on any duplicate summoning fragments. Lin Jin refused first notice on anything that affected survival. He allowed a controlled sale of tools that were useful but not strategic, damaged scroll paper, ordinary kunai, chakra-conductive wire, and 2 incomplete low-level technique cards that could not teach the full method without Lin Jin's interpretation. In return, Gu provided 4 safe house locations, 2 medical access tokens, a list of black market brokers who had begun buying Awaken cards, and 1 piece of information that made the entire conversation worth the risk. The Gate disciples had made contact with someone inside the Gu family. The name Gu Chengzhou gave was Gu Jingyao. In the previous life, Gu Jingyao had died early, remembered only as a minor casualty in a financial family internal struggle. Lin Jin now understood that his death had probably not been simple. If the Gate disciples had reached into the Gu family this early, then their hands were moving faster than the old timeline. Or perhaps Lin Jin's own actions had made them hurry. Gu watched his reaction carefully. "You know that name." "I know enough to tell you he is more dangerous than he looks." "To me, or to everyone?" "To anyone standing near a door he wants opened." Gu's smile disappeared. That phrase landed too close to the hidden truth. Gate disciples did not call themselves worshippers. They called themselves doormen, guides, preparers, bridge builders. In public they wore suits, founded laboratories, sponsored disaster aid, and spoke gently about helping humanity adapt. In private they treated Earth as a shell waiting to be broken. Lin Jin had learned in another life that the worst enemies were not the ones who screamed about destruction. The worst ones spoke like healers while turning desperate people into experimental keys. When the negotiation ended, Gu did not ask Lin Jin to sign the contract. He tore the first version in half, placed a blank sheet on the table, and wrote a shorter agreement by hand. Information trade. Mutual non-interference. Emergency medical support. No ownership rights. No forced recruitment. Lin Jin read every line twice before nodding. Zhou looked deeply moved. This is the first rich person document I've ever understood. Shen Liyue said, that's because it has no trap hidden in the fourth paragraph. Don't underestimate rich people, Zhou said. Maybe the trap is that we can understand it. Gu chuckled and signed first. Lin Jin signed after him. Shen Liyue witnessed. Zhou insisted on adding a small smiling star beside his witness mark until everyone stared at him long enough for him to stop. They left the tea house before sunset. On the street outside, the city was entering its first evening after the cards awakened. Police drones hummed above old rooftops. Temporary barriers blocked several intersections. A screen on a public bus stop replayed official instructions: do not trade unknown cards privately, do not enter unstable rifts, report contaminated awakenings immediately, remain calm. Nobody looked calm. People stood in clusters with their eyes glowing from system screens. Some were laughing too loudly. Some were crying into phones. Some kept touching the cards in their hands as if afraid they would vanish. Lin Jin had seen this kind of evening before. It was the hour when greed caught up with fear. At the end of the street, a delivery van without markings rolled too slowly past them. Its windows were dark. Zhou did not notice. Shen Liyue did. We're being watched. Not only watched, Lin Jin said. The van door slid open. 3 figures jumped out in black raincoats, faces hidden behind cheap filtration masks. The first raised a crossbow that had been modified with a card slot. The second's arms shimmered with a low-grade hardening ability. The third threw a paper tag toward the ground. Lin Jin's eyes narrowed. Down. The paper tag burst into white smoke. The first bolt cut through the space where Shen Liyue's throat had been a heartbeat earlier. She leaned back, one hand touching the wet stone street, and frost spread beneath her palm. Zhou yelped and rolled behind a delivery crate with more agility than dignity. Lin Jin stepped forward instead of back. The assassins had chosen the right moment and the wrong target. They had waited until Gu's people were out of sight. They had chosen an old street with few witnesses. They had used smoke to break line of sight and a crossbow to avoid obvious ability fluctuations. In the first week after awakening, most new card users would panic under those conditions. But Lin Jin had lived through 10 years of people trying to kill card holders for less. His hand flicked. A black iron kunai cut through the smoke and struck the crossbow's side groove. The loaded bolt fired into the wall instead of Shen Liyue's chest. At the same time, he formed the half-familiar rhythm of chakra through his legs and shoulders. Not enough for a clean technique. Enough for speed. The hardening user rushed him with both arms raised. Lin Jin let him come close, then stepped into the man's blind angle and drove his elbow into the soft point beneath the ribs. Bone-hard skin did not protect internal breath. The man folded for half a second. Half a second was enough. Shen Liyue's ice needle pierced the strap behind his knee. The leg locked. Lin Jin hooked the man's ankle and sent him crashing into the smoke. The third attacker finished forming a seal with the paper tag. The street stones under Lin Jin's feet softened like mud. Zhou shouted, "Floor problem. Very serious floor problem." "Storage grid," Lin Jin ordered. "What? Now?" Zhou slapped one hand against the ground. A square of cracked stone vanished into his storage grid, leaving the paper tag exposed in the thin layer beneath. Lin Jin's kunai pinned the tag before it could spread. Shen Liyue froze it solid. The spell collapsed. For the first time, the attackers hesitated. They had information on Lin Jin. They knew he possessed a rare ninja world source ability. They knew Shen Liyue used ice. They had probably been told Zhou was a useless storage type awakened whose value was logistical. What they had not understood was how dangerous a logistical ability became when used at the exact point of a technique's foundation. Lin Jin moved before their hesitation ended. The smoke shifted. Another Lin Jin rushed from the left, kunai raised. The crossbow user turned instinctively and fired. The bolt passed through the body in a burst of pale smoke. Substitution. The real Lin Jin appeared behind him and struck the nerve point at the base of his wrist. The crossbow fell. Shen Liyue sealed it to the ground with ice. Zhou threw the canvas bag as a distraction, missed the attacker's head, and hit a lantern instead. The lantern fell, swung, and struck the third assassin directly in the mask. For one perfect second, everyone looked at Zhou. He spread his hands. Calculated. It was not calculated, Shen Liyue said. Emotionally calculated. Lin Jin did not smile. He kicked the crossbow away, stripped the card slot from its side, and turned the attacker over. Beneath the raincoat collar was a small brand burned into the skin, shaped like an open doorway. Gate Disciples. The mark was crude, not yet the elegant sigil they would use years later. That made it worse. It meant this cell was early, experimental, hungry. They were not fully organized yet, but they were already willing to assassinate a student in the street for a chance to see source card intelligence. Sirens approached from the next block. Gu Chengzhou's black-gloved guard appeared at the street entrance with two family security members behind him. He had moved fast, but not fast enough to prevent the attack. Gu himself stepped from the tea-house doorway, expression colder than before. "That was not my arrangement." "I know," Lin Jin said. "Do you? If it were your arrangement, you would have used someone better." Gu was silent for a moment. Then he laughed without amusement. "Fair." Qingyuan arrived 3 minutes later with an official response team. His face looked as if it had been carved from fatigue and suspicion. "You left a controlled recovery zone for a private meeting," he said. "A necessary meeting. And got attacked. That part was not scheduled." Qingyuan stared at him. "Do you know how many reports I am going to write tonight because of you?" Zhou raised his hand carefully. "Can my contribution be listed as lantern-based tactical intervention?" "No." "Storage grid terrain disruption?" Qingyuan paused. "Maybe." Zhou looked satisfied. The captured assassins were taken away under official seal. Gu Chengzhou provided the location of the hired van's original route, which proved at least some sincerity. Lin Jin provided the stripped crossbow slot, but not the full meaning of the Gate Disciples' mark. Not yet. Too much information given too early could turn protection into containment. Still, the attack changed the city's balance. Until that afternoon, most officials believed the danger came from rifts, monsters, unstable awakened powers, and panic. The assassination proved that human factions had already begun weaponizing the new world. Cards were not only tools of survival. They were currency, leverage, bait, and motive. By nightfall, the official safe zone around Eastsea United University had doubled in size. Lin Jin did not sleep. He sat in the temporary medical tent with a heated towel over his left shoulder while Shen Liyue studied the new ice moon cards arranged in front of her. Zhou lay on a folding cot nearby, claiming he had suffered emotional damage from heroic lantern deployment. Qingyuan stood outside the tent speaking into a secure line. Liang Qingru, the official researcher, had not stopped moving since the campus crisis. Shen Liyue turned one of her cards between two fingers. The ice response was faster this time. Because you stopped treating it as a projectile. It's not. Not only. Your card set isn't a weapon bag. It's a field. She looked up. Lin Jin pointed to the frost pattern that had spread across the metal table beneath her palm. When you attacked the assassin's knee, you weren't simply throwing a needle. You changed the state of the surface around the target. Your ice moon cards can slow, bind, reflect, preserve, and reject. The killing part is the least important function. Zhou lifted his head from the cot. I feel attacked as a storage professional. Apparently my storage is also not only storage. Correct, Lin Jin said. Wonderful. More responsibilities. Shen Liyue ignored him. Reject? A higher-level ice moon path can refuse foreign energy entering a protected area. Not absolute defense. More like telling the world that a certain rule is not allowed to pass. The words were vague because Lin Jin could not explain everything yet. In the previous life, Shen Liyue's late-stage authority had not been famous for ice blades. It had been famous for boundary refusal. She could stand at the edge of a collapsing domain and declare what could not enter. Curse contamination. Spirit pressure. Certain parasitic contracts. Even fragments of world law. That future was far away. But the seed was already in her hand. Shen Liyue lowered her eyes to the cards. Then I need more than attack practice. Yes. Control, preservation, field anchoring, and rejection. And endurance. Her fingers tightened slightly. She had nearly exhausted herself freezing the campus core, and the strain still showed in the faint tremor of her wrist. But her gaze was clearer than before. Then teach me. Lin Jin was quiet. He had used people as positions on a map for too long. In the previous life, that habit had been necessary. Every mistake cost lives. Every teammate was also a resource, a role, a possible death. But this life was already changing. Shen Liyue was not asking to be placed correctly. She was asking to understand the board. I will, he said. Before dawn, the second barrier wave arrived. It began without thunder. Every awakened person in the city felt it as pressure behind the eyes. The crack above Eastsea deepened from black to a layered gray, and for several seconds the sky looked thin enough to tear by hand. Detection instruments screamed across the safe zone. Cards flickered in people's hands. Low-level abilities activated by accident. A man with a flame card set his own sleeve on fire. A woman with hearing enhancement collapsed because she heard something breathing inside the crack. Then the system notices appeared. Second barrier fluctuation detected. Local world law density increasing. Ninja world fragment resonance rising. Unstable ruin entrance forming. Liang Qingru shouted for the research team to stabilize the monitors. Qingyuan ordered all civilians back from the sealed campus line. Gu Chengzhou's security unit, still technically outside the official chain of command, moved medical supplies toward the tent without waiting to be asked. Lin Jin stood. His shoulder still ached. His chakra lines felt scraped raw. His legs were heavy from the previous battles. But the moment the notice appeared, old memories snapped into place. The ruin was early. In the previous life, the ninja village ruin had opened 2 weeks after the first awakening wave. It had been the first real proof that dimensional fragments were not only dungeons but pieces of coherent worlds. It contained damaged training grounds, a broken archive room, sealing scrolls, puppet traps, and one low-level summoning contract that later sold for an obscene price. This time, because Lin Jin had taken the source card, because the campus rift had been disturbed, because the gate disciples had interfered, the ruin was opening now. Where? Chen-Yu demanded. The detector screen flashed. A red point appeared beneath the old civil defense tunnels under the north side of campus. Lin Jin already knew. Underground, he said. Old air raid shelter network. The entrance will not stay stable for long. Chen-Yu looked at him. How do you know? Pattern match. That answer is getting worse every time you use it. Then survive long enough to hear a better one. The first team assembled in less than 10 minutes, Lin Jin, Shen Liyue, Zhou Mingye, Chen-Yu, 2 official awakened guards, Liang Qingru as technical support at the entrance, Gu Chengzhou's black-gloved guard representing private logistical support, and Qingyuan Sun. Qingyuan Sun was the young foreign fighter Lin Jin had rescued from suppression earlier, a summoned warrior whose original world had left him half-erased. His name had not fully returned, but the sound Qingyuan Sun held enough shape for him to answer. He carried a short blade and moved with the wary silence of someone who had learned trust as a dangerous luxury. When he saw Lin Jin preparing to enter, he said only, "The ruin smells familiar." Familiar good or familiar bad? Zhou asked. Qingyuan Sun considered. Bad, but useful. That is the worst kind of useful. The tunnel entrance yawned beneath a cracked concrete stairwell. Old warning signs hung crooked on the wall. The air below was cold and smelled of dust, rust, and leaves after rain. Halfway down, modern emergency lamps failed. The space ahead began glowing with a dim green light. They stepped into the ruin. The world changed one layer at a time. Concrete became packed earth. Pipes became twisted roots. The ceiling opened into a false night sky where no stars moved. Broken wooden buildings leaned against each other in the distance, their roof tiles shattered, their paper windows gray with age. A training yard lay ahead, marked by weathered posts and target boards. Beyond it rose a gate with half its sign burned away. Zhou swallowed. This is under the university. No, Lin Jin said. The entrance is under the university. This is somewhere else pressed against it. Chen-Yu's official guard raised a scanner. The screen immediately filled with static. Liang Qingru's voice crackled through the communicator. Signal unstable. Your space readings are folding inward. Maintain voice contact every 30 seconds. They advanced across the training yard. The first trap triggered when Zhou stepped on a tile that did not look different from the others. Qingyuan Sun moved before anyone shouted. He hooked the back of Zhou's collar and yanked him down. 6 wooden darts hissed through the air where his head had been. Zhou lay flat on the ground. I would like to formally resign from stepping on tiles. Denied, Lin Jin said. You need to learn why you stepped on it. Because my foot went there. Because the dust on that tile was thinner. Qingyuan Sun crouched and pointed with the tip of his blade. The edge is too clean. Someone reset it. Not someone, Lin Jin thought. Something. The ruins' defenses were not alive, but they were not entirely dead. Dimensional fragments preserved rules like scar tissue. A training ground designed to test apprentices would continue testing intruders long after the village that built it had vanished. They crossed the yard slowly. Shen Liyue froze pressure plates before they sank. Zhou used his storage grid to remove loose stones hiding tag triggers. Qingyuan's guards shielded Liang's portable anchor device. Qingyuan Sun detected wire traps with a patience that made Zhou deeply nervous. At the ruined archive, they found the first sealing scroll. It lay inside a cracked wooden cabinet, wrapped in oil paper. The moment Qingyue reached for it, 3 shadowy figures dropped from the ceiling beams. They were not human, not exactly. Their bodies were formed from old chakra residue and broken defense commands, faces blank, hands holding kunai made of dull light. Lin Jin exhaled. "Don't break the scroll cabinet. That is your first instruction," Qingyue said. "Second instruction, don't die." The fight was tight and ugly inside the cramped archive. The residue guards were weak compared with real summoned fighters, but they had no fear and no wasted motion. One drove Qingyue into a shelf. Another forced Shen Liyue back toward a wall of paper tags. The third aimed for Zhou because ruins, like people, often underestimated him. Zhou panicked and raised his storage grid. The guard's kunai vanished halfway through a strike. For a heartbeat, everyone froze. Then Zhou shouted, "I stole its knife." "Good," Lin Jin said. "Now give it back sideways." Zhou released the stored kunai at an angle. The weapon shot out and struck the residue guard in the shoulder. It did not destroy it, but it disrupted the pattern long enough for Qingyuan Sun to cut through its chest with wind chakra. Shen Liyue spread frost across the floor, not to attack but to slow the residue guard's footwork. Lin Jin saw the shift and nodded once. She was already applying the lesson. Her ice was becoming field control instead of simple needles. Qingyue smashed the last guard into a support beam with a reinforced punch, then caught the falling shelf before it crushed the scroll cabinet. "You're welcome," he said through clenched teeth. Lin Jin took the sealing scroll with both hands. Damaged sealing scroll acquired. Low-level seal pattern, containment. Low-level seal pattern, suppression. Low-level seal pattern, delayed release. The system notice appeared before all of them. Liang Qingru's voice came through the communicator, suddenly sharp. "Did that say containment?" "Yes," Lin Jin said. "Bring it out intact." That was already the plan. The sealing scroll mattered more than most people in the tunnel understood. In the future, cities would not survive by killing every monster. They would survive by sealing contamination, storing unstable fragments, isolating infected cards, and building boundary boxes around rules that human law had no language for yet. This damaged scroll was crude, incomplete, and low-level. It was still the first step toward civilization learning how to keep pieces of another world from poisoning the kitchen table. They found the enemy summoner near the inner gate. He was not one of the official team. Not one of Gu's people. Not a random awakened scavenger. He wore a clean white mask and a gray coat, and the open-door mark at his wrist was newer than the brands on the assassins. 3 cards hovered around him. One held the outline of a crow. One held a broken puppet. One held a human-shaped shadow chained at the throat. Lin Jin's eyes went cold. The gate disciples had not only found the ruin. They had entered before the official team and were trying to extract a summoned being by force. The masked man turned as they approached. The source holder finally arrives. Qingyue raised his weapon. "Identify yourself." "A student of the coming door." "Then class is over," Zhou muttered. The masked man ignored him and looked only at Lin Jin. You took what should have belonged to the age. No, Lin Jin said. I took what would have been wasted by people like you. The crow card flashed. Black feathers exploded through the air. Each feather carried a thin edge of chakra, sharp enough to cut skin and sensitive enough to track heat. Shen Liyue lifted one hand, and a crescent of ice rose before the team. Feathers struck it in a rapid drumbeat. Cracks spread across the ice. The puppet card opened next. A wooden puppet crawled from the ground on 6 jointed limbs, its face painted with a smile too wide for its head. Poison needles clicked beneath its wrists. Qingyuan Sun stepped forward. For the first time, real anger moved across his face. That style is wrong. Lin Jin understood immediately. The puppet had been built from a rule fragment related to Qingyuan Sun's world, then twisted through a card by someone who did not understand or respect the original system. To an outsider, it was only a weapon. To Qingyuan Sun, it was a corpse wearing a familiar technique badly. Don't rush, Lin Jin said. Qingyuan Sun's grip tightened on the short blade. I know. He rushed anyway. The puppet sprang to meet him. Its limbs moved with unnatural speed, but Qingyuan Sun changed direction at the last instant, sliding under the first needle volley and cutting 2 strings of chakra at the puppet's shoulder. Lin Jin followed, not to compete, but to cover the blind angle. A paper kunai struck the ground where the masked man tried to plant a control tag. Shen Liyue turned the broken ice wall into a field of reflective shards. The crow feathers curved toward her, struck the shards, and lost their tracking pattern. Zhou used storage to catch 3 fragments of poison needle before they reached Qinyu's exposed side. I am becoming a battlefield trash collector, he said. Keep collecting, Qinyu snapped. The 3rd card opened. The chained human-shaped shadow lifted its head. For a moment, the ruin fell silent. It was not a monster. It had once been a summoned fighter, or a fragment of one, dragged across the barrier and bound by a crude contract. Its body flickered between smoke and flesh. Its name had been stripped so badly that the system could only display static where identity should have appeared. Qingyuan Sun stopped moving. Lin Jin saw the danger too late. The masked man smiled behind the white mask. Kinship is a useful weakness. The chained shadow attacked Qingyuan Sun. It was fast. Too fast for its damaged state. Qingyuan Sun blocked the first strike but was driven back across the gate courtyard. The puppet recovered and lunged at his flank. Lin Jin intercepted with a lightning-enhanced wire, locking one puppet limb for 3 seconds. Shen Liyue froze the ground beneath the chained shadow, but the chain around its throat burned through the ice. That chain was not only restraint. It was a command line. The throat mark. Lin Jin shouted. Break the throat chain, not the body. Qinyu charged. The masked man raised a hand, and crow feathers turned toward Qinyu's eyes. Zhou acted without thinking. His storage grid opened in front of Qinyu's face and swallowed the first wave of feathers. Bad idea, Lin Jin warned. I noticed. Zhou's storage grid shuddered violently. Foreign chakra was not ordinary matter. Holding it inside a low-level storage space was like stuffing burning knives into a paper drawer. His face went pale. Blood leaked from his nose. But the moment he bought was enough. Shen Liyue stepped into the open and formed a ring of pale ice around the chained shadow's feet. Not attacking. Rejecting motion. The ice moon field did not stop the shadow completely, but it denied one direction. Qingyuan Sun saw it and moved with her instead of against her. His short blade flashed. The throat chain cracked. The shadow screamed without sound. Lin Jin drove a black iron kunai through the control tag hidden behind the chain. The masked man's third card shattered into gray light. The chain's shadow collapsed. For a moment, its face became human. It looked at Qingyuan Sun and moved its lips. No sound came out. But Qingyuan Sun understood. His expression did not change much, yet something behind his eyes hardened into grief. Then the shadow dissolved. The masked man tried to retreat. Gu Chengzhou's black-gloved guard chose that moment to move. Gravity pressed down across the inner gate. The masked man's knees buckled. Qingyue seized his wrist. Lin Jin struck the card slots from his sleeve. Shen Liyue sealed his feet to the ground. Zhou, still bleeding from the nose, kicked away the crow card and immediately regretted using his injured foot. The fight ended in less than a minute. The consequences lasted much longer. The masked man laughed even after Qingyue forced him to the ground. You think stopping me changes anything? The second wave has already begun. The ruin core is waking. The first contract beast will choose a holder. You cannot hide source light forever. Lin Jin crouched before him. Who sent you? The door opens for those who prepare. Wrong answer. The masked man tilted his head. You remember, don't you? Lin Jin's face did not move. You remember a world that has not happened yet. That is why you fear us. Qinyue's eyes snapped toward Lin Jin. Shen Liyue went still. The masked man had not guessed the full truth. He could not have. But gate disciple rituals involved fragments, dreams, and resonance with possible futures. Sometimes their unstable experiments brushed against truths they did not fully understand. Lin Jin stood. Take him out alive. Qingyue wanted to ask questions. His expression said the questions were piling up faster than reports. But the ruin shook before he could speak. The false night sky above the village cracked. A low animal cry rolled through the broken buildings. The contract beast was waking. They found it beneath the collapsed shrine at the ruin's center. It was small, gray, and deeply unimpressed with everyone. Zhou stared at it. This is the contract beast. The creature sat on a broken stone pedestal, tail wrapped around its paws, ears flattened in irritation. It looked like a gray fox if a gray fox had been born from smoke, ash, and several generations of bad temper. A tiny summoning mark glowed on its forehead. Around it lay 3 broken contract plaques, each one damaged by the ruin's instability. Liang Qingru's voice came through the communicator. Visual feed is unstable. Describe the entity. Zhou said, small, gray, judgmental. That is not a technical description. It is emotionally accurate. Lin Jin did not approach immediately. Summoning contracts were not pets. Even low-level contract beasts had pride, instincts, and rules. The worst mistake a new awakened person could make was treating one as a loot drop. Qingyuan Sun knelt first, placing his short blade on the ground to show he was not challenging it. The gray creature looked at him, then at Lin Jin. It ignored Qingyue completely. Qingyue looked personally offended. The system notice appeared. Damaged summoning contract detected. Contract beast, ash gray wind fox. State, injured, hostile, unanchored. Contract risk, medium. Forced contract risk, fatal backlash. Zhou took one step back. I vote against fatal backlash. Nobody is forcing it, Lin Jin said. The gray fox bared its teeth. Lin Jin sat down on the cracked shrine floor. Everyone looked at him. He placed the black iron kunai across his knees, palms open. He did not reach for the contract plaque. He did not release chakra toward the fox. He simply met its gaze and waited. In the previous life, this summoning card had been taken by a private team, forced through a crude contract, and sold 3 times. The beast had eventually gone mad, killing 2 handlers before being destroyed. People remembered it as unstable. Lin Jin remembered the report details differently. The instability had begun after the forced contract. The fox was not a tool that had failed. It was a survivor that had been enslaved badly. Minutes passed. The ruin shook again. Dust fell from the shrine roof. Outside, Qinyu's guards dragged the masked prisoner toward the entrance. Shen Liyue stood near Lin Jin but did not interfere. Zhou pressed cloth under his bleeding nose and whispered encouragement that was mostly nonsense. The fox finally limped forward. It sniffed the kunai. Then it bit Lin Jin's finger. Zhou flinched. "Is that good?" "Not sure," Lin Jin said. The fox did not let go. Blood touched the cracked contract plaque. The summoning mark on the fox's forehead brightened, not with the harsh red of forced control, but with a pale wind-colored glow. The system interface unfolded in front of Lin Jin. Voluntary contract path opened. Contract beast requests equal-bound summoning agreement. Conditions: no forced battle command, no soul-binding transfer, emergency return right retained. Qingyuan frowned. "It has conditions." "Good ones," Lin Jin said. He accepted. Wind rushed through the collapsed shrine. Not strong enough to harm, but sharp enough to clear the dust from every broken stone. The gray fox dissolved into a card of ash and pale green light, then reappeared on Lin Jin's shoulder with its tail lashing irritably. Summoning card acquired, Ash-Gray Wind Fox. Nickname field pending. Zhou leaned closer. "Can we name it Little Gray?" The fox hissed. "Rejected," Shen Liyue said. Zhou looked wounded. "By everyone?" "By everyone." Lin Jin touched the card lightly. A summoning card this early changed many things. It gave the team a scout, a contract link, a wind sense anchor, and a living bridge to the rules of the ruin. More importantly, it proved that voluntary contracts were possible before the official system understood summoning ethics. That proof would matter later when other factions began treating summoned beings as disposable weapons. For now, it also meant the ruin core had chosen a side. The ground split beneath the shrine. A column of chakra rose from below, carrying fragments of maps, seals, broken names, and village memories. The ruin was collapsing inward. Not physically at first. Conceptually. Its rules had lost the contract beast, its sealing scroll, and its core archive in rapid sequence. There was not enough structure left to hold the fragment stable. Liang Qingru shouted through static. "Exit now. The entrance is shrinking." They ran. The retreat became a 3-way battle before they reached the archive yard. The first side was the official team, carrying the scroll, the prisoner, the contract card, and the anchor data. The second side was the ruin itself, throwing traps awake in a final defensive spasm. The third side arrived from a side corridor that should not have existed, 3 more intruders, not gate disciples this time, but black market awakened who had followed the disturbance hoping to steal whatever survived. One wielded a bone spear card. One used a smoke step ability. The last carried a heavy backpack filled with empty capture cards. "Busy night," Zhou said weakly. Qinyu's patience finally snapped. "Move." He hit the spear user like a truck. The courtyard exploded into motion. Smoke filled the broken training ground. Wooden darts fired from the walls. The ruins' puppet wires lashed at anyone who crossed the center line. The black market smoke user tried to slip behind Shen Liyue, only to find her ice field already waiting. His foot froze to the ground, and Qingyuan Sun's blade stopped a finger's width from his throat. Lin Jin tracked the backpack carrier. That one was the real threat. Empty capture cards could store unstable fragments, injured summoned beings, or half-formed technique cores. In the wrong hands, they could turn every disaster site into a hunting ground. The backpack carrier threw 3 cards at the collapsing shrine light. Zhou saw it first. He is stealing the shiny disaster. He opened his storage grid and swallowed 1 capture card mid-flight. The backlash hit immediately. His face went gray, but he held it. Shen Liyue froze the second. Lin Jin cut the third in half with a lightning-threaded kunai before it touched the ruin core. The backpack carrier cursed and reached for another. Gu Chengzhou's black-gloved guard stepped from the smoke and lowered one hand. Gravity crushed the man's backpack against the ground. Cards cracked inside it like breaking teeth. Lin Jin gave the guard a brief look. The man nodded once, expression unreadable. Gu's people were not allies. Not truly. But for tonight, their interests overlapped. The entrance appeared ahead as a rectangle of gray light. The masked prisoner suddenly laughed. His wrist mark ignited. Lin Jin recognized the rhythm and felt his stomach drop. Get away from him. Qingyuan reacted instantly, throwing the prisoner forward instead of trying to hold him. The open door mark burst into a ring of black light. For 1 second, something on the other side looked in. Not a full being. Not yet. Only a pressure, a suggestion of vast attention, like a hand pressing against cloth from the wrong side of the world. Shen Liyue stepped between the pressure and the wounded team. Her eyes spread in a crescent. Not a wall. A refusal. The black pressure struck the ice and slowed. Lin Jin moved beside her, placing the ceiling scroll's damaged containment pattern against the ground. Qingyuan Sun cut the prisoner's burning wrist mark from the flow of energy without cutting the wrist itself. Zhou, shaking, opened his storage grid just long enough to remove the broken tag feeding the mark. The ring collapsed. Shen Liyue fell to one knee. Lin Jin caught her before she hit the ground. I told it no, she whispered. It listened for half a second. Is that good? That is very good. They crossed the exit as the ruin folded behind them. The old air raid shelter spat them back into concrete, rust, emergency lights, and shouting officials. The entrance shrank to a coin-sized spark, then vanished. The pressure over campus dropped so sharply that several people stumbled. For a few breaths, nobody spoke. Then every alarm in the command area changed tone. Liang Qingru stared at the monitor. Core readings are not falling. They're moving. Where? Qingyuan asked. The map expanded across the screen. Red points appeared under the campus, then spread through old underground lines toward the city center. Lin Jin's expression hardened. The ruin was only the door, he said. The city-level core is under the old civil defense network. Qingyuan swore under his breath. The first battlefield had been a campus. The second was about to be a city. By sunrise, Eastsea's sealed zone covered 6 districts. Official vehicles blocked major roads. Medical tents filled parking lots. Awakened volunteers were sorted by ability type. Fire users were kept away from oxygen tanks. Strength-enhanced users were assigned debris work. Sensory users were given quiet rooms because too many of them heard the underground core beating like a second heart beneath the pavement. Lin Jin stood before the temporary command map with a cup of bitter glucose water in one hand and a medical patch on his neck. He looked barely alive. Unfortunately, he also looked correct, which made everyone keep asking him questions. Liang Qingru pointed to 3 underground lines. The core resonance is strongest here, here, and here. We can seal 2 with current equipment. Not 3. Gu Chengzhou said, my family can provide portable generators and field barriers within 40 minutes. Chen-Yu looked at him. In exchange for what? A receipt, Gu said. For now. Nobody trusted the words for now, but they accepted the generators. The problem was not only sealing. 3 groups were already moving toward the core. The official team, Gu's private unit, and a coalition of black market awakened drawn by the global ranking notice. On top of that, Gate Disciple remnants were still inside the city, likely trying to turn the core into a permanent door. 3 sides converging on one unstable heart. Lin Jin remembered the old version of this event. In the previous life, Eastsea had not faced a full city-level core this early. The later core incident had killed thousands because nobody understood containment. This time the threat arrived earlier, but they had the sealing scroll, Shen Liyue's ice moon preservation, Zhou's storage disruption, Qingyuan Sun's trap sense, and the gray fox's wind perception. Not enough to feel safe. Enough to try. The gray fox sat on the map table and sneezed at the red point. Zhou leaned over. I still think little gray works. The fox bit his sleeve. Democracy is failing me. Lin Jin ignored them and traced the underground network. The core won't be in the strongest signal. Liang Qingru frowned. Why? Because those are vents. Pressure leaks. The core hides where signals cancel. He pointed to an old maintenance node between 3 lines. Here. Chen-Yu looked at the map, then at Liang. Liang ran the numbers. Her expression changed. Signal shadow, she said. He's right. Chen-Yu closed his eyes for 1 second, perhaps praying for a world where useful civilians were less exhausting. Team assignments. They moved within the hour. The underground maintenance node was a concrete chamber built decades earlier and forgotten by everyone except city engineers and rats. Now its walls pulsed with layered symbols from the Ninja World fragment. Pipes dripped water upward. Shadows pointed toward no light source. At the center of the chamber, suspended over a dry drainage pit, floated the city-level rift core embryo. It looked like a card made of black glass and living roots. Around it, 3 forces arrived almost together. Chen-Yu's official unit entered from the north tunnel. Gu Chengzhou's people came from the west with portable barriers. A black market group forced through the south gate using stolen explosive cards. And from the maintenance ladder above, a gate disciple woman in a white half-mask dropped lightly onto a pipe, holding a thin book bound in red thread. So many guests, she said. The core pulsed. Every card in the chamber answered. For a moment, greed overpowered reason. The black market leader shouted for his people to seize the core. Gu's guard moved to protect his employer. Chen-Yu ordered everyone to stand down. The gate disciple woman opened her red thread book and began chanting a phrase that made the air taste of iron. Lin Jin threw his kunai into the center of the chamber. It struck the ground beneath the core and released a paper tag copied from the damaged sealing scroll. The core pulse stuttered. Anyone who grabs it directly dies, he said. Anyone who damages the chamber turns 6 districts into a rift mouth. Anyone who helps seal it gets to keep breathing. The black market leader laughed. And we should believe you. The gray fox opened its eyes. Wind cut across the chamber and revealed the invisible lines extending from the core to every person's card. The black market leader saw a black thread wrapped around his wrist, leading straight into the core. His laughter stopped. Lin Jin said, "That thread is a claim. It is not yours. It is claiming you." The first black market awakened panicked and tried to cut the thread. The core answered by dragging him 3 steps forward. Shen Liyue froze his boots to the floor before he crossed the danger line. "You're welcome," she said coldly. The gate disciple woman smiled. "You are learning faster than expected." "You're talking too much," Qingyuan said. He fired. The chamber battle began. This time, it was not a simple fight of strength against strength. It was a fight over rules. The core tried to pull cards inward. The gate disciple woman tried to open it. The black market group tried to steal fragments. Gu's unit tried to preserve assets while avoiding liability. The official team tried to keep the city intact. Lin Jin's team moved between all of them, forcing the battlefield to follow a plan that existed mostly inside Lin Jin's head and half-formed trust. Shen Liyue anchored 3 ice moon points around the pit. Each point slowed the core's pulse. Zhou used storage only in flashes, removing tags, broken wires, loose capture cards, and once an entire grenade that somebody had thrown without thinking. Qingyuan Sun and the Gray Fox moved through wind paths, cutting hidden strings before they tightened. Qingyuan held the north line with brute discipline. Gu Chengzhou, to his credit, ordered his guard to protect the sealing equipment instead of chasing the core. Lin Jin reached the pit edge. The core showed him visions. Not illusions. Possible memories. He saw Eastsea in the old timeline, burning under a later wave. He saw Zhou dead in a financier's disposable team. He saw Shen Liyue standing alone at a boundary, white hair frozen with blood. He saw Qingyuan Sun's name erased completely. He saw himself 10 years older, too late to save anyone who mattered. The core whispered without words. "Take me, and you can force the future back into shape." Lin Jin almost laughed. That was the oldest lie of power. The promise that if one person held enough control, no one would have to suffer uncertainty again. He knew that road. It ended with everyone becoming pieces. "No," he said. He placed the sealing scroll pattern against the core's lower edge. The gate disciple woman screamed. "You don't understand what you're refusing." "I understand exactly." Shen Liyue's ice answered from 3 directions. Zhou removed the last exposed capture card from the pit. Qingyuan Sun cut the red thread book's anchor line. Qingyuan drove the black market leader away from the core. Gu's barrier generator locked into place with a heavy metallic hum. The core bucked. For 1 second, all 5 world shadows flashed through the chamber: forest and sea, spirit tower and curse city, white light and black moon. Then the ninja world layer folded inward around the sealing pattern. The black glass card cracked, not breaking, but opening like a seed. A smaller, stable core card emerged inside Shen Liyue's ice. City-level rift core embryo suppressed. Eastsea United University crisis resolved. Participants recalculated. Regional ranking updating. Global ranking updating. The chamber went silent. Then the south tunnel collapsed. Everyone ran. They reached the surface minutes before the underground entrance sealed itself in a roar of dust and failing concrete. Dawn light spread across Eastsea. The crack above the city remained, but its pressure had weakened. For the first time since the sky opened, people in the command area cheered. Not because the disaster was over. Because the city had survived the night. Shen Liyue carried the frozen core card in both hands. Her face was almost transparent with exhaustion. Zhou stumbled out behind her, checking first that his storage grid still existed and second that the instant noodles inside were unharmed. Qingyuan Sun emerged with the gray fox walking beside him as if they had silently agreed to dislike everyone together. Chen-Yu dragged one captured black market awakened by the collar. Gu Chengzhou's guard carried 2 injured official workers without being asked. Lin Jin came out last. For a moment, he stood at the edge of the collapsed entrance and let the morning air hit his face. He was hurt. His chakra lines burned. His left hand still carried contamination residue. His right leg trembled when he stopped moving. A medical awakened examined him and looked personally offended by the number of things wrong with him. How are you standing? Lin Jin thought about it. Habit. Shen Liyue heard him and turned her head. Her look made him sit down without further argument. Zhou, who had been preparing to say something, closed his mouth in respect for the power of that look. Half an hour later, the rankings finalized. Every awakened person in Eastsea saw the notices at the same time. Eastsea City Personal Merit Ranking. First, Lin Jin, 3,120 points. Second, Shen Liyue, 1,688 points. Third, Chen-Yu, 1,241 points. Fourth, Gu Chengzhou, 1,019 points. Fifth, Zhou Mingye, 876 points. Zhou froze with a water bottle halfway to his mouth. Fifth? I'm fifth. Does the system know I spent half the night terrified? Lin Jin said, it counted results. It should count feelings. Then you would be first. Zhou considered this and nodded. Fair. The next notice appeared. East Asia Personal Merit Ranking. 17th, Lin Jin, 3,120 points. Then the final notice opened across every awakened interface tied to the global system. Global Personal Merit Ranking. 99th, Lin Jin, 3,120 points. The command area erupted. Global Ranking. 99th. It was only the first version of the list. Scores would shift wildly as more cities stabilized, more rifts opened, and more hidden monsters surfaced. But rankings did not need to be permanent to change the world. A name on the global board became a signal flare. Officials saw it. Financial families saw it. Black markets saw it. Gate disciples saw it. Foreign awakened saw it. Hungry allies and hungrier enemies saw it. Lin Jin's name had left Eastsea. Gu Chengzhou looked at the ranking with new calculation in his eyes. Global 99th. Temporary, Lin Jin said. Temporary is enough to keep many people awake tonight. Including you. Gu smiled. I am practical. I will simply adjust the price of future cooperation. Then prepare a higher price. Of course. Before leaving, Gu paused. Gu Jingyao's matter. I will give you an answer. If the gate disciples touch my family again, you will know. Condition. I want your version of what happened underground. Buy the official version from Liangqingru. I want yours. Lin Jin looked at him. Later. Gu accepted the word as if it were already a contract. Nearby, Liangqingru spoke to her superiors in a low, controlled voice. Lin Jin caught fragments, global list, core separation, civilian exploration team, sealing technology, gate disciples, key protection, key supervision. Protection and supervision were often separated by only one document. Lin Jin understood. The free window of the early age was shrinking. Fame gave him bargaining power, but it also placed a chain around his ankle. From now on, he was no longer an unnoticed reborn student moving through blind spots. He was a high-value target every major force would want to study, recruit, control, or erase. He did not regret it. Some edges had to be shown. Hiding in the dark could keep a person alive longer, but it rarely gave them the resources to change the future. In the previous life, Lin Jin had reached the table too late and spent years being moved by the age instead of shaping it. This time, he would sit at the table early enough to deal the next card. Shen Liyue returned after finishing the core sealing procedure and sat beside him. She looked at the ranking. "You're famous now. Troublesomely famous. Do you regret it?" "No." She was quiet for a while. "You said the future will become more chaotic." "Yes. Then our team cannot survive only because you know what happens next." Lin Jin turned toward her. Her face was still pale, but her eyes were steady. "I will become stronger," she said. "Zhou will too. Qingyuan Sun, the fox, and whoever joins us later cannot be pieces waiting for your orders. If the map in your head fails one day, and none of us can judge for ourselves, we all die." Lin Jin was silent. It was a direct sentence. A correct one. His old memories were already drifting because of his own actions. The second barrier wave had arrived early. The gate disciples had appeared early. The ninja village ruin had opened early. The city-level core had been exposed early. The farther he moved, the less he could rely on the old map. What he needed was not a set of obedient pieces. He needed a team that could think, fight, choose, and live even when his information failed. "You're right," he said. Shen Liyue raised one eyebrow, as if she had not expected him to admit it so quickly. Zhou, who had been pretending to sleep, raised a hand. "Then I request less training." "Denied." "I knew it." Qingyuan Sun sat at the tent entrance with his short blade across his knees. "I will teach him traps." Zhou stared. "Me? You step on them most often. Learn not to." "That reason wounds me, but I cannot refute it." The gray fox made a small sound that seemed far too much like agreement. For the first time since the sky opened, a little laughter moved through the medical tent. It was not loud. It did not make the future gentler. But in a morning that had nearly become the first grave of Eastsea City, it reminded them that they were still alive. The laughter faded when Liang Qingru entered with 3 sealed data tablets and a face that had not slept. She placed the first tablet in front of Chen-Yu, the second before Lin Jin, and the third before Gu Chengzhou. The fact that Gu received one at all made Chen-Yu's jaw tighten, but nobody objected. His generators had kept 2 field barriers alive during the core suppression. The new age was already teaching everyone an uncomfortable lesson: clean chains of command were a luxury cities could not always afford. "Preliminary incident classification," Liang said. "The public version will call it a local rift stabilization operation. The internal version will call it a city-level core embryo event. The sealed version will include the gate disciple ritual, the forced summoning attempt, and the global ranking exposure risk." Zhou raised a hand from the cot. "Is there a version where I am described as brave?" Liang looked at him over the edge of her tablet. "There is a version where your storage ability prevented 1 capture card breach, 1 explosive misfire, and 1 ritual tag from completing." Zhou slowly lowered his hand. "That version is acceptable. It also describes your repeated panic. That version has been compromised." Shen Liyue leaned back against the tent support and closed her eyes for a moment. The pale frost around her fingers had finally melted, leaving her skin red from the cold she had forced through her own body. Lin Jin noticed and pushed the warm water cup toward her without speaking. She opened one eye, looked at the cup, then accepted it. Liang saw the exchange but did not comment. The bigger problem is the core card. The sealed core sat inside a transparent isolation box near the center of the tent. 3 layers contained it, a crude sealing scroll pattern on the innermost glass, Shen Liyue's ice moon preservation field in the middle layer, and an official low-temperature stabilizer around the outside. The card inside looked dormant, but every few breaths a root-like line moved beneath the surface. It is not a weapon, Lin Jin said. Everything becomes a weapon if the wrong person writes the budget proposal, Qingyuan said. Gu Chengzhou smiled faintly. Or the right person. Qingyuan gave him a look that promised paperwork violence. Liang tapped the tablet. The core can become 3 things. A research object, a sealed hazard, or the foundation for a controlled rift facility. The first invites theft. The second wastes its value. The third requires trust we do not yet have. Then don't choose today, Lin Jin said. Liang turned to him. Build a temporary containment protocol, he continued. 3 key access. Official custody, research custody, and field team verification. No single faction moves it alone. No private transfer. No destructive experiment. No exposure to unregistered awakened. Gu Chengzhou's eyes sharpened. Qingyuan frowned, not because the suggestion was bad, but because it was too mature for a student who should have been recovering from nerve burns. Liang said, and your role? Witness and warning system. Not owner. That answer surprised her more than if he had demanded possession. Lin Jin understood why. In the new age, everyone wanted ownership. First card, first rift, first contract beast, first core, first ranking. People believed holding a thing meant controlling the future around it. But he had seen the cost of that hunger. City cores did not belong in one person's pocket. They belonged behind procedures strong enough to survive greed. Shen Liyue looked at him for a long second, and something in her expression softened by the smallest amount. 3 key access makes sense, she said. But the field team key cannot depend only on him. She set the cup down and looked at Liang. If he is unconscious, contaminated, missing, or compromised, Jin-Yue Team needs another verifier. Zhou pointed weakly at himself. I volunteer, assuming verifier means paperwork and not being near the exploding thing. It means responsibility, Shen Liyue said. His hand lowered. I still volunteer, but with emotional reservations. Lin Jin almost objected. The old version of him would have. He would have kept the dangerous knowledge centralized, not from arrogance alone, but from fear that one wrong mouth could doom everyone. But Shen Liyue's earlier words still sat in his mind. A team that depended on one person's memory would break the first time the future turned sideways. Zhou should be one verifier, Lin Jin said. Zhou stared at him. His storage grid interacted with the core's capture attempts and survived. That gives him recognition value in the system. Shen Liyue should be the other because her ice moon field stabilized the outer pulse. Liang typed quickly. 3 field signatures, Lin Jin, Shen Liyue, Zhou Mingye. Zhou sat up too fast, winced, and lay back down. I have become paperwork. Important paperwork, Qingyuan Sun said from the tent entrance. Zhou looked at him. Was that comfort? No. Still taking it. The gray fox, who had refused every name except silence, jumped onto the isolation box and stared at the core card through the glass. Its tail moved once. The card inside pulsed in answer, then quieted. Liang's instruments recorded the reaction immediately. "Contract beast resonance," she said. "Do not put it in a cage for tests," Lin Jin said. Liang's fingers stopped above the tablet. He met her gaze. "Ask. Offer food. Offer terms. If it refuses, stop. Voluntary contracts are not only kinder. They are more stable." For a moment, the medical tent was silent again. That sentence was going to become a problem. Lin Jin knew it as soon as he spoke. The world had just discovered summoned beings, contract beasts, residue fighters, and fragments of people dragged through broken dimensional rules. Many factions would treat them as equipment. Some officials would argue that desperate survival required control first and ethics later. Private laboratories would call coercion research. Gate disciples would call slavery preparation. But if no one said the other path early, the cruel path would become the default. Chen-Yu rubbed his forehead. "You're making my reports worse." "Better now than after the first contract rebellion," Lin Jin said. Liang's expression changed. "Contract rebellion? A predictable consequence." She stared at him, then slowly added another sealed note to the tablet. The meeting ended with no clean victory. The core would remain under temporary triple oversight. The gray fox would not be caged. Zhou would receive supervised training in storage grid hazard handling, which made him look as if he regretted heroism deeply. Shen Liyue would begin Ice Moon field control practice under medical limits she had no intention of respecting. Qingyuan Sun would teach trap recognition, name preservation, and silent movement to anyone patient enough to learn. Lin Jin received the worst assignment. Rest. He attempted to negotiate and failed against the combined authority of Shen Liyue's stare, Chen Yu's command voice, Liang Qingru's medical report, and Zhou's unexpected betrayal. "I support rest," Zhou said solemnly. "For you. Not as a general policy." Lin Jin lay back in the medical chair and looked at the canvas roof. For the first time in many hours, nobody was trying to kill him, recruit him, scan him, or ask him to explain impossible knowledge. The quiet should have felt comfortable. Instead, it felt dangerous. In the previous life, quiet usually meant the next disaster had already begun somewhere too far away to hear. At noon, the official announcement went public. The Eastsea United University rift was classified as a first-rank stable rift under temporary government control. Civilian awakened cooperation would enter a trial phase. The Jin-Yue Team was listed as the first auxiliary exploration team to assist with rift stabilization and emergency response. The announcement did not mention the city-level core. It did not mention the gate disciples. It did not mention Lin Jin's source card. The ranking list did not hide his name. Lin Jin, Global 99th. Far away over the Pacific, a black crack reflected an endless sea. A broken sailing ship moved through fog under a skull-marked flag, and on its deck a strange fruit rolled against wetwood while cardlight flickered through its spiral skin. In an inland forbidden zone in Africa, a hunter from another world stood on the branch of a giant tree and looked down at a map of Earth appearing in his palm. In an old European cemetery, a white spirit opened its eyes inside a stone coffin. In an abandoned underground station in Tokyo, the first low-grade curse spirit crawled across the ceiling and smiled at the crowd below. The fusion of 5 worlds would not stop because Eastsea had survived one night. Outside the medical tent, Lin Jin looked up into the deepest layer of the crack. He saw waves, a black ship, a giant tree shadow, a white tower, and the outline of a city that did not belong to Earth. The first origin card had only opened the beginning. Next, the sea domain and the forbidden forest would pull the entire world into a larger game. Lin Jin closed his hand. Within his palm, the origin card turned quietly, 7 attribute patterns lighting one after another. He was no longer the ordinary student who had run alone toward the old gymnasium. He was the captain of Jin-Yue Team. The holder of the Ninja World origin card. The first name on Eastsea's board. The 99th name on the global board. And the first great card of the new world had already fallen into his hand.